Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of The Lindsey Elmore Show. Today is all about the dreaded topic of public speaking. I know it can be one of those things that can be so terrifying that it literally sends some people into panic attacks simply to get on stage in front of others. But public speaking, like anything else, is a skill that can be taught and can be acquired. On today's show, I speak with Brenden Kumasarmy, who helps individuals and organizations to become better conveyors of their message. We talk about how to craft good stories that get people from the very, very beginning and have them hanging on your every word until the very end. After that, I tell a story about my very first speech that I ever gave at the ripe old age of 10, and it was all about what every 10-year-old talks about, breast self-exams. After I tell you the story, I go through and describe how to effectively screen yourself at home for breast cancer using a monthly self-breast examination. Let's get to the show. Welcome to The Lindsey Elmore Show, a podcast that helps you find fulfillment amidst chaos. On this show, I interview thought leaders, doctors, creatives, spiritual gurus, and game changers who inspire you to pursue your dreams, overcome obstacles, and leave your mark. Brenden Kumarasamy is the founder of Master Talk, a YouTube channel he started to help other people around the world master the art of public speaking and communication. He coaches purpose-driven entrepreneurs on how to craft their message and more effectively share their ideas with the world. Today, he and I talk about communication, public speaking, and how to get into the mindset of how to be a better communicator. We challenge each other to a couple of different random word exercises that you can do at home to help you become a better speaker. Brenden Kumasarmy, welcome to the Lindsey Elmore Show.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Lindsey. It's great to be here.
I'm excited to talk to you. So you are the founder of Master Talk, and it is a YouTube channel that helps people all around the world master public speaking and communication. So tell us your backstory. What made you decide that the world needed yet another public speaking training platform, and what makes Master Talk different?
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to talk about that. So when I was in university, Lindsey, I used to do these things called case competitions. Think of it like professional sports, but for nerds. So while other guys my age would play football or soccer or baseball or any of those other sports, not something I was very much into. What I did instead is I applied that same competitive spirit to presentations. So suffice to say, in 3 years, I presented hundreds of times, coached dozens of people on communication, but the ambition was never to be a YouTuber or to start a coaching practice. I wanted to be an executive at a company, right? So I got a job in corporate America, or I guess in my case, corporate Canada, so I'm based in Montreal. And then after I graduated, I just asked myself a simple question, which was, how do I make a difference in the world? How do I contribute more to society? And I realized that a lot of the communication information out there was really bad. You hear advice like, Lindsey, you should be yourself and get up on stage. And I just went, this is so vague.
Yeah.
So I started making videos in my basement, and then one thing led to another, and Master Talk was born. So, and I guess to the second part of your question, what makes Master Talk so different? There's a couple of things I realized in the industry that were off. First one is a lot of the information that speech coaches were sharing was very academic and not very tangible. The second thing is that the quality of the information that was available for free for people who couldn't afford a speech coach was also really bad. And the reason is simple. Speech coaching is a highly lucrative industry. All you need is 10, 15 executive coaching clients. They'll always want to pay you every year. They'll pay you 10, 20 grand a package. And that's it. You're done, right? You work 10, 20 hours a week. You make multiple six figures. Why would you ever want to make free videos for YouTube. Whereas for me, the mission was much bigger than that. It was, wait a second, what about the 7-year-old girl in Massachusetts? What about the 14-year-old boy in London? What are they supposed to do? And that's when I had the passion for it.
So you started Master Talk so that you could make public speaking more accessible. And I so hear you, this whole thing of like, be yourself, go on stage, just be calm. But what are some actual tangible steps? Because lots of people struggle with public speaking. And let's take a step back. Why do you think people struggle to just go out on stage or to go on a video and just say something that's in their head or their heart?
Right. This is something I've asked myself a lot, and I get this question, wherever you're from, whether you're from the States, whether you're from, Europe or Asia. And I think the answer to this question, Lindsay, lies in the classroom. I mean, think about it. Regardless of where you're from, 100% of all the presentations you've given, not in your case, but for most people, are mandatory. We don't wake up one morning and say, hey, Lindsay, you want to get breakfast and present all day? Nobody says that.
Right.
So we're in high school, we're in college, we're in university. 3 things happen. 1, we never get to pick the topic. And if we do, it's generally something we're not passionate about. Think about the Renaissance in history class that I thought was a fruit. Number 2, students. Students don't care to listen to us, not because they don't care about us, but because they have to talk about Egypt in 10 minutes, so they're not paying attention to our presentations. And that's what we're learning all of our presentation habits. Finally, number 3, teachers are very well educated, very well intentioned, but also very stressed. If you have so many presentations to go through from each of your students, do you really have time to coach them? So year after year, presentation after presentation, we're taught to believe that public speaking, Lindsay, is a chore. Or at school, it's tied to a grade. If you're at work, it's tied to a result. And that's why we struggle with it. Not because we stink at public speaking, but because our perception of public speaking is that it's a bad thing for us rather than what it's supposed to be for, which is exactly what you're using it for, which is to make a difference and have this conversation.
So that brings up a really good point, which is oftentimes we are really crappy audience members, especially when people are on their phones, or if you're a student in a public speaking course and you're thinking more about your presentation than the person who is up on stage. And so what are some of your pet peeves when you're either on a stage or when you're coaching someone? And how do you, as the speaker, gently bring your audience? Because, you can stand up on stage and be like, hey, is anybody even listening to me right now? And then all of a sudden your audience is like, this guy's totally a jerk. But how do you maintain that focus of your audience throughout a presentation?
Right. Here's my principle that I follow. Because I don't like telling audience members what to do or saying, oh, you should check your phone or not check your phone. My point of view is be so good that they need to listen to you. Be so amazing that they just have to sit there and watch and listen to every single word that you say. Tony Robbins doesn't go into a seminar and say, hey, I want you all to pay attention to me for 16 hours. We just want to. So how do we create that environment for all of us? How do we all strive for a version of that? The way that we do this, and this is the easiest tip I'll share today that anyone can implement, it's called the puzzle method. So in many ways, Lindsay, public speaking is like a jigsaw puzzle. You know those 1,000-piece puzzles you kind of do with your family, especially now since COVID, you can't really do anything outside. So if I asked you, Lindsay, if you're working on this puzzle with anybody in your family, which pieces would you start with first and why?
I mean, you're going to start with the corners, the edges. You're going to start by grouping together all of the colors that look alike. You're going to try to put a pattern to the jumbled mess that is a 1,000-piece puzzle.
Absolutely. So now the question is, why don't we do that in public speaking? We have a presentation at work, in business, at school. So what do? We shove a bunch of content. In other words, we start with the middle. And then we get to that presentation. We get to the last slide of that presentation. And what does it sound? It sounds something like this. Yeah, so thanks. That's probably 97% of all the presentations I've seen in my life. So how
Mm-hmm.
do we fix this? Easy. Treat your presentations like a jigsaw puzzle. Start with the edges first. Present your introduction 50 times, not 3 times, not 5 times, 50 times. It's actually not that hard. It'll take you an hour, right? It's a minute introduction. Do the same thing with the conclusion. What's a great movie with a terrible ending? A terrible movie.
Mm.
50 times in 2 hours of practice, Lindsey. Whether you have a coach or not, doesn't really matter. At the end, you'll say, wow, I'm really good at this introduction thing. I'm really good at this conclusion thing. Now I can tackle the middle. But much like a jigsaw puzzle, why would you ever do a puzzle that's thousands of pieces alone, right? Do it with a friend. Do it with somebody that you want to practice with, and together master the public speaking puzzle.